Imagine getting up every day full of energy as if you were in your 20s again. What would that be like? What would it be worth to you? What is your health worth to you? Think about it. Your health isn't everything, but without it, everything else is nothing. And yet, too many of us are taking it for granted until something goes wrong. And no one wakes up hoping to be diagnosed with a disease or chronic illness. And yet, we've never been taught how to be proactive in our health through our school or public health. As a registered health coach and integrative health practitioner, I believe it's time this information is made available to everyone. Combining new knowledge around your health and the ability to do myofunctional medicine lab tests in the comfort of your own home will allow you to optimize your health for today and all your tomorrows. Don't wait for your wake-up call. Welcome back to another episode of the Don't Wait for Your Wake Up Call podcast. I am your host, Melissa Deely, and today with me, I have a very dear friend and colleague, Sheree Wertz. Welcome back to the show, Sheree.
Thanks for having me. It's always great to see you.
Thank you. And it's been over 2 years since you've been on the show. And so I just wanted to have you back because, of course, the area in which you work is so important. And many people don't realize the impact of their oral health on their overall health. And you have a new book coming out. And so I want to share your wisdom and expertise with the audience. Now, let me just introduce you first. Sheree is a passionate advocate for holistic health, specializing in the often overlooked mind-mouth-body connection. With expertise in myofunctional therapy and oral health, she bridges the gap between traditional and integrative approaches to wellness. Sheree's work focuses on how breathing, sleep, and oral habits impact craniofacial development, behavior, and lifelong health. With years of experience, she empowers parents and professionals with actionable strategies to optimize health and prevent chronic issues from infancy through adulthood. Sheree's insights inspire meaningful transformation, helping others take ownership of their health and unlock their potential. And I know that firsthand, having had many, many conversations with you. I absolutely love the work that you do. It is so important and so overlooked.
Yes.
And so simple too, once you know.
Exactly. And I think that's why we don't talk about it. So thank you for having me back. I appreciate it. I think we are on the same page as far as wellness and
Absolutely.
Being a dental hygienist, even I didn't connect the mouth to the rest of the body because I was just taught to look at cavities and look at gum disease, not really how it's connected to the whole body. And I know last time we talked about where's your tongue in the tongue posture, but since then, instead of niching down just into that, I've been talking more about how everything is connected. So
I was just going to say there, if anybody wants to go back and listen to your previous podcast, it was episode 100, easy number to remember. Go find that, listen to that episode after tuning into this one, and you will have so much greater information at your fingertips to then be able to make informed decisions for yourself and ask your dentist and hygienist more relevant and important questions for you around your health. And if they've only been taught in cavities in the traditional way, then maybe it's time for you to reach out to Sheree, because you work virtually too, right?
I do. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There were so many people that wanted help. So virtual was the way to go. And with 2020 and COVID, more people are open to that. So we can definitely help more people that way, which is amazing.
Beautiful. So you have a book coming out, or it's out?
Well, the digital copy is out. The actual physical copy probably won't get released until the end of February, March, but I do have on my site where you can order it. If you order it from my site, I actually will send it to you. It'll be a signed copy from me. If you wait until it comes out, it'll be on Amazon and you can get it for 99 cents when the release comes out, the digital copy. So then that promotes it on Amazon. So the more copies you sell, the more you get to the Amazon bestseller status.
Beautiful. And what is the title of the book?
So the title is Owner, and Owner stands for Oxygen, Water, Nutrition, Enough Sleep, and Respecting the One Body That You Get. and it's the mind, mouth, body connection. Because what I've learned through helping so many people is that we're not making the connection. We treat our mouth separately, it has its own insurance, and people don't really see that the signs and symptoms that you're having in your mouth can actually be related to underlying issues in your body.
I
So,
love that. I love the name of it and that acronym. So let's just go through each of the letters of that acronym in a little bit deeper level to give people more insight as to the type of information that you cover in the book so they can dive deeper.
so having had cancer myself,
Mm-hmm.
having an uncle that had diabetes and then cancer, and now my dad was just diagnosed with prostate cancer that metastasized to the bone. So, in all of those instances, cancer was involved. Signs in the mouth were involved way before the cancer was diagnosed. And it was just kind of written off and not really making the correlation. So that's where I shifted to the mind, mouth, body, and owner. So owner starts with everything starts from the head down. So it starts with your mindset. What do you believe? First of all, do you believe this? Because if you don't believe what I'm saying, then you're just gonna move on, scroll past this. So you have to kind of believe in this stuff. And whatever works for you, right? Everybody's different. But what I learned is that when you're having cavities and you're having gum disease and inflamed gums, cavities are a pH imbalance. So when you're getting cavities, there's usually an imbalance in your body. Well, so is cancer. So most people that get cancer have some type of an imbalance in their body. And again, our Western medicine doesn't look at a lot of these things. They look, when they test your blood, at what things can they look for and give you pills for. So they test your cholesterol, they test your diabetes, they test your sugar levels, they test your thyroid levels, but they don't test for how are you depleted in vitamins? What is your heavy metal toxic load, right? You talk about that a lot, being the toxin slayer.
Yes.
And until I met you, and got cancer, I didn't even know any of this stuff. So I found out I had cancer, I think after I met you.
It was actually before.
Before.
Yeah, just
Before
before.
I met you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we were talking about that. And then I found out that I had cancer. But what I found out is that the heavy metals were making it so I wasn't absorbing things. And so I wasn't getting the nutrients in my body.
Right.
And then my dad was diagnosed. They totally missed all of the signs. So prostate cancer, breast cancer are really easily treatable when it comes to cancers, but you have to find them early. So if you're not testing for that stuff, then you don't get it until a later stage, which makes it more difficult to test. And there are certain numbers that they can run that they don't always do. So being aware of that is something that is really important. And same thing with my uncle. He had gum disease that was getting out of control, and I watched him over the years lose teeth. Now I know when you're diabetic and your gums are bleeding, a lot of times if your gums are bleeding, they bleed before the signs of diabetes show up. So once he got treated for diabetes and his sugar problems, his gums were completely perfect. I didn't know that back then as a dental hygienist. So I didn't know that when the gums look purple and they're bleeding and when we're doing everything we can and nothing is helping, it usually means there's something out of balance in your body. And so seeing you first and testing for all those toxins are probably a good place to start before you even get way down the road. And so that's where I came up with this acronym owner, because you have to be able to breathe through your nose. When we don't breathe through our nose and we use our mouth, we get 18% less oxygen. We lose 40% of our water when we sleep. Our cortisol goes up. We get kicked out of a circadian rhythm. So now we're out of our sleep cycle. We're getting interrupted sleep. Now we're craving dopamine and sugar and caffeine, which creates inflammation in our body. And it's this huge cycle effect. And so if you concentrate first on how are you breathing, if you breathe through your nose warms, filters, humidifies the air, and gets out all of those viruses or things, because then you have your nose and your tonsils to filter all that out. So our nose is our filtration system. We were meant to be nose breathers. And when we don't breathe through our nose, all that filtration goes right into your lungs then. And so when you breathe through your mouth, not only does it go into your lungs, but it can go into your gut, which now creates a gut dysbiosis.
Right.
And then when you're mouth breathing, it creates inflammation, it creates more cavities, you're losing more water, so now you're dehydrated. If you have that toxic load, you might be drinking 3 or 4 of these a day, but you still could be dehydrated because now you don't have the nutrients or the electrolytes and you're not actually absorbing the water. And so all of this is really important because once you've met your toxic load, it's like pouring water into a glass that's already full. It just starts to overflow. That's what's happening to all the vitamin and nutrients we're taking. So there are so many supplements, and people just look at a TikTok and order that, but you're spending that money and you're probably just peeing it right out. It's not doing you any good unless you're actually testing the body.
You don't know what your body needs. You don't know if your body's able to absorb it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So oxygen, water, nutrition, enough sleep, and respecting your body. And so you really need to start out with, how are you breathing? If you're breathing through your mouth, how much water are you getting? Nutrition wise, what are you putting in? And if you notice a lot of these symptoms, like you have dark circles under your eyes, you're getting headaches, you're waking up with a stuffy nose, you get night sweats, you're getting up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, your kids are wetting the bed, they're walking on the tiptoes, they're having night terrors, they're having behavioral issues. All of this is connected to how you're breathing and how you're sleeping, and they could have a toxic load in their system. So then I recommend that they see someone like you to test and see what's happening, and then see me to work on, is your tongue functioning okay? How are you breathing? Do you have enough room for your tongue? Do you need palatal expansion? Because the floor of your nose is also the roof of your mouth. So if you're really vaulted from having your tongue down all the time, now it's going to make it more difficult for you to breathe. And you won't have room to keep your tongue up. So if you don't have room to keep your tongue up, or your tongue tied, then your tongue is not functioning, and it's also throwing all of this stuff off. So that's where owner came from, and how important how you're breathing and what you're putting in is important to the rest of your body. Because if this is not working correctly and you have inflammation and cavities, then nothing else below is going to be healthy. And you might think you're healthy, but you're not as healthy as you could be.
And your health 10 years or 20 years or 30 years down the line isn't going to be what you want it to be, because it's always very slowly over time that what's happening in our mouth is impacting the rest of our body. It's not instantaneous. And, the medical industry right now, many, not all, I know there's a lot of holistic dentists that would be looking for this, and holistic doctors. However, most are still not looking for that mind, mouth, body connection. So as a listener, if you have symptoms going on in your mouth or anywhere in your body, don't ignore them, because your symptoms are your body's way of talking to you and asking you to do something differently. And go and get those answers. And if the person that you typically see tells you, oh, don't worry about it, it's nothing, seek more help, because every symptom is a message, and it's your body's advertisement to you that something needs to change.
Absolutely. And, we're not like a car where we have a warning light. Those symptoms are our warning, and there's usually a root cause. And our healthcare system, the symptoms. So unless you're having symptoms, they don't know what to test for, what to treat. So you really need to learn to listen to your body. And I think we're not taught that as kids. We're not taught how to breathe correctly using our diaphragm. It should go out when you take a breath in and in. And so a lot of people breathe opposite.
Right.
And we're not taught to look at those symptoms. So if we actually took some time to just sit and listen to what our body was telling us, it does give us warning symptoms. And our mouth absolutely gives us warning symptoms. And you wouldn't necessarily know you had a cavity, but no pain in your mouth does not mean no problem. And by the time you have pain in your mouth, it's a huge problem. And so that's why you want to get your mouth looked at. You want to know the health of your mouth, and you want to listen to those little warning symptoms. If you are brushing and you spit out blood, it could be you got a new toothbrush or you haven't flossed in a while and you floss. But if you're getting blood and you're spitting out blood every day, or you're using your water flosser and you're getting blood, that's a sign that there's some type of an imbalance. You could have gum disease, but you could be diabetic and it could be undiagnosed. You could have a form of cancer that's undiagnosed. it's hard to say what it is, but you need to listen to those symptoms and find someone that can help you figure out what it is. You have to be your own detective and you have to be your own healthcare advocate these days and listen to your body.
And the sooner you respond to those symptoms and act on it and seek out what's going on so that you can rebalance your body, because all of those symptoms are a sign that your body's out of balance. And I know it could be a sign of diabetes, cancer, etc. Don't be afraid of that. It's better to go and face that up front and deal with it now when it's easier to deal with and easier to overcome, etc. And there's many ways to healing. There is never just one way as well. So if you're told this is what you have to do and it doesn't sit well with you, again, you can seek out practitioners that can show you other ways to healing. The key is to address it right away. Don't put it back in your head and say, oh, I'll deal with it 6 months from now, or allow the fear to stop you from dealing with it, because that's the absolute worst thing to do. And fear doesn't help in the healing journey anyway.
Does not.
We need to get out of that place of fear by asking, what am I supposed to learn, right? And what action can I take in order to move through this? And that action is seeking the answers, and the seeking the answers is the learning. So your best step forward is to address it right away. It's like the seesaw, the closer you are to the middle, it hardly moves. There's not as much work to do. And when you're way out on the end because you've left it too long, it takes a lot longer, and there's a lot more balancing that needs to be done in the body to bring the body back into balance. And a body in balance doesn't harbor disease, doesn't get sick, doesn't carry over, excess weight. So we want the body to be in balance, and our bodies are designed to heal. We just have to make sure, to your point, that they have what they need in order to be able to do that. And when we're living in a stressed out world and we're nutrient depleted and we've got a high toxic load, the body is in overwhelm and it can't do what it's supposed to do until we start to remove the toxins, support the nutrients that it needs, as well as supporting our sleep, as you've talked about. And that's when the body has the resources in order to be able to heal itself. So I love this owner. So O for oxygen. And
W for water.
I was just going to say, before I go to water, the mouth breather, you said, gets 18% less oxygen. Is that right?
Yep. 18%. And think about that with our kids, right? Mm-hmm. When they're waking up and they're tired and they're cranky, they're mostly sleep deprived. And ADHD and sleep disordered breathing have the identical symptoms. And that's what was happening with my daughter. And the doctor said she'd outgrow bedwetting. And when I said she's not, she's 13, it's become a social issue. He actually said to me, her mom with an overactive imagination, she'll be fine. Kids wet the bed. Yeah, they do, but it's not normal. And she had a sleep issue. Like her sheets were messed up and her pillows were all over, and she wasn't waking up because she was in fight or flight, and your brain is just trying to keep you alive. So it tells your body, get rid of anything you don't need. That's why they're wetting the bed, not a bladder issue. We spent thousands of dollars seeing a urologist and buying one of those alarms and waking her up and making sure she doesn't drink before bed. It was none of that. She was in fight or flight because she wasn't getting enough oxygen and her body was trying to wake her up.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And how many parents don't realize that and overlook that? And again, we're so programmed that if there's, the symptom is bedwetting, okay, there must be something wrong with that organ related to that. And we don't look from a more holistic approach at the whole body as being one and all the interconnectedness of it. Yeah, if you can't breathe, of course you're going to be in fight or flight. We need to breathe to stay alive.
Yep. And if you're tongue-tied, it's holding your tongue down. So then when your tongue is up and resting on the roof of your mouth like it's supposed to, you can't breathe through your mouth. But when it's connected all the way to your toes, so if kids that have a forward head posture or they're walking on their tiptoes, they could have a tongue tie. But not everybody that has a tongue tie should have a release, because if you don't have enough room for it to be suctioned on the roof of your mouth and you get it released, now it's going to block your airway more and you don't know how to control it. So that's where the myofunctional therapy comes in. But, the tongue ties and releases have become so popular. But if you don't do therapy before and after, they will reattach, or they may make the symptoms worse. So you got to know how you're functioning, if there's enough room for it, before you just go get it released.
Yeah. Knowledge is power, people. Knowledge
Mhm.
is power. So if any of this is resonating with you, or you know people that are struggling with sleep, even adults, it's again easier to resolve in children, which is why you love to work with children,
I
Sheree.
do.
Reach out to Sheree because she is such a wealth of information. And it doesn't matter that she's not in your local town because she'll work with you virtually and be able to give you advice and exercises that can be done in order to help realign the tongue, to improve sleep, and everything else that goes along with that.
Yeah. And you could need another provider. Like, you could have your central nervous system could be out of whack, your vagus nerve, which is all part of all of that. It's your 10th cranial nerve.
It
So
goes from your brain to your gut and has more neurons in it than the brain alone. Yeah.
yeah. So if your central nervous system is deregulated, that needs to be regulated. And so I may need to send you to someone else. You may need to see an ENT if your tonsils or adenoids are swollen or you have a deviated septum and you can't breathe. But most people just are like, well, I can't breathe through my nose. I'll just breathe through my mouth.
Right.
You need to figure out why and try to figure out how you can breathe through your nose because you're going to be much healthier and live a longer life
Mm-hmm.
if you breathe through your nose.
And 18% more oxygen, which gets pushed through your entire body in your blood, is really
Right.
important. Just think of the healing capabilities of oxygen through hyperbaric chambers when people have had head injuries and other diseases, and they use hyperbaric chambers with the higher doses of oxygen and get great results because oxygen is so healing and we need it. And so depriving ourselves of it every single night obviously has a downside effect on our long-term health and our longevity.
Yeah. And speaking of that, when you're doing that and you're losing 40% of your water, then
Yes.
your body is made of 60 to 70% water. And now you need the water to help carry the oxygen and nutrients to the cells. So you can't live without oxygen for 4 to 6 minutes, but you can't live without water for 3 days. And they kind of all go together. Like all the systems in the body work together. They don't work separately.
Right. So the O is oxygen, the W is water, the Nu is nutrition,
But and
the
it's yeah.
E is enough sleep, and the R was
Respect.
respect your body. That's right.
Respect your body, respect yourself. Even the thoughts that you think
Yes.
are going to be, you want to think good thoughts. Even when you're around your kids, you don't want to say bad things, even about yourself or someone else, because your kids, they don't learn by words. They learn by actions. They learn by experiences. And we live off emotions. So, until my daughter was repeating things back to me, I was like, do I really sound like that? Do I say those things? Like, I just wasn't even aware. So even just being aware of what you're saying, what your thoughts are, how you're feeling. If things don't feel good, they're probably not good. You need to reprogram that, rephrase it, and think something good. We talk about that where you say cancel, cancel, cancel. Like, nope, don't say that. You
Yes.
want to think good thoughts and,
Yeah.
think about what you're saying, what you're putting out, because law of attraction is true. But I think we
Mm-hmm.
don't understand law of attraction. It's being happy. And we don't realize that just that little thing that we put out there puts that out in the universe. And that's what we get back.
Yeah, I literally just finished a workshop talking about these very topics earlier today. One of
Yeah.
them was focus on what you want. And that's the
Yeah.
law of attraction is you have to focus on what you want in order to receive it. And so many times people are focusing on what they don't want. They're focusing on all the things that have gone wrong.
Mhm.
And they get more of it and they wonder why, right? Whereas
Yeah.
if you focus on what you actually want, and I love to start people off by doing a gratitude journal. And we've talked about that before. And
Yeah.
then the stop sign, bring the awareness into, or bring the thoughts that you have into your awareness. And when they're negative, hold up your hand like a stop sign. And as you do this, you'll start to hold your hand up a whole bunch of times. And then as you train your brain to have the positive thoughts and focus on what you want, you don't have to put your hand up as much. And you were talking about the kids and our children, especially young children in that 0 to 7 window. They're like sponges. They're in their theta brain wave. They're entirely in their unconscious mind, and they're literally just absorbing everything. And on top of that, our unconscious mind takes everything personally anyway. So even if you're talking about yourself when you say something, if a child hears it, their unconscious mind takes that on as well. And so it's just having the awareness around that. So you can shift the way you think, which shifts the way you speak. You shift your focus and watch life blossom in a really beautiful way.
Absolutely.
So that R is a really important aspect as well of owner. So absolutely beautiful.
And there are basic needs. There's Maslow's theory of hierarchy says we need to meet our five basic needs. So shelter instead of the R is what
Right.
we need. Most of us have shelter, but the problem is that most humans are not even meeting those basic needs. And so it's harder to move up the levels and to help anyone else when you're just surviving.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And so understanding all of this again starts to shift the mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And it can get us out of being on victim island, as I like to say, when we're just surviving and we're regurgitating the poor me story over and over again, into being in Solution City.
Yep.
And it's a choice.
It is.
You know, people might say, well, I don't have a choice. I have to have this job for the paycheck, even though I hate it. There's many other jobs out there where you can work for yourself. And sometimes we don't, you know, it's comfortable suffering. We don't want to make the change because we know what this is and we have the paycheck and we have the benefit plan, et cetera, et cetera. And yet being in that that toxic environment of a job that you hate is again negatively impacting your health for the long term. And you're far better off to bite the bullet, find that job that you love, and you don't have to, you can look for the job that you love while you're still in the job that you hate, or, you know, look for the type of business that you want to start and then make that shift now, not 10 years down the road.
No, because you and I both know that you're going to work that job to have that money, but you're going to spend that wealth getting your health back that you let lapse during all that. So you are your greatest asset and your greatest investment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And speaking of spending that money, the cost of, and you know, the average North American is spending the last 10 years of their life in a nursing home. That's a long time, because once you go into the nursing home, you're not coming out. It's very rare that people would come. And that's not really quality of life at that point. And it's 10 years. And by 2030, it's anticipated that the cost of that's going to be about $141,000 a year. And that's just your room and board and, you know, maybe some physio treatments and things like that. It's not your specific medical care because they can't bundle that in. They don't know what your issues are going to be. So that's all on top of the $141,000 a year times 10, which is 1.41 million before you pay for your health treatments, your medical treatments. That's a lot of money. Invest now in your health so you don't have to spend the 10 years in the nursing home. I know that's your goal. That's my goal.
Even
we get kind of money. Life.
Yeah. Most of those people aren't even, yeah. Yes. Quality of life. We definitely need that. And if you think about that, how many people are even making or living on that kind of money that they're going to need to support themselves at the end of life?
Exactly. And so then they can't go in a nursing home. So they end up with a relative. And depending on the level of care that you need, that relative might have to quit their job in order to care for you. So then they don't have an income. And caregiving is really tough. One-to-one caregiving.
Yes, it is.
So all of this comes back to the importance of understanding the mind, mouth, body connection.
Absolutely.
Which is your area of expertise. So let's just talk about, I think it's really important for parents to understand the symptoms that kids might be exhibiting that they can watch for in order to help their kids avoid any health issues, any learning issues, any diagnoses, because of the fact that turns out they're mouth breathing and parents hadn't realized.
Well, for me, it starts with even before you're pregnant, how is the mom breathing? Because if the mom is a mouth breather, she is getting less oxygen and the baby is getting less oxygen just even in the womb. And so you're affecting your child by the way you breathe before you even bring a baby into the world. And then when the baby's born, if you have a tongue tie, if you open really wide and lift your tongue, you should be able to reach your tongue to the roof of your mouth. If you can't, if you're tongue tied, that is actually genetic. You can pass that down to your infant, and it passes down to generations. So if that's the case, you could have a hard time nursing. The baby might not latch. It might be painful. And the sooner you get that release, the easier, because then you don't have to do all the stretching. You can work with a IBCLC. You can do the stretches, you can get it released the first 3 days that the infant is born. And then it's not traumatic to them, to you. It heals really fast. They can latch, they can feed, they can grow. But you really need to start looking, look in your baby's mouth, and even just pulling their lip down, their tongue should be suctioned to the roof of their mouth. It starts right at the beginning because infants cannot breathe through their mouth till they're 3 months old.
I never knew that.
Yes.
Wow.
So they are obligate nose breathers when they come out of the womb. So they learn to breathe through their mouth when they can't breathe through their nose. So, and they could have allergies. They could have an allergy to the milk. They could have an allergy to something that you're ingesting and then you're passing to them. Or if you can't nurse and you start bottle feeding, they could have maybe even not an allergy, maybe a sensitivity to what you're giving them that's creating more mucus, more phlegm, and they can't breathe. So I actually recommend putting drops in a baby's nose. They're called Clear. They've got a little elephant on the bottle behind me. They have xylitol in them. So when you change the baby's diapers, if you put one drop up each nose, that actually helps clear out the nasal sinus. You know, we used to just suck them out, suck out the boogers with
Yes,
that
I remember doing that with a bulb thing. Yep.
little bulb thing. You can use these so the baby can, it'll just clear their nose and it'll help the adenoids if they're swollen. But watch to see, can they suck, swallow, breathe? Are they having to pause when they breathe when you're nursing or when you're feeding them? And a lot of times when you nurse, the baby kind of sits up like this because of how you feed them. But a lot of times people give their babies a bottle, they lay them down. Well, when you lay them down, then what happens is the fluid can go into their ears. So Dr. Zaghi from the Breathe Institute is an ENT, and he said if you hold the baby up, a lot of the kids that need tubes in their ears are because of how they were fed as infants.
Oh,
And
interesting.
so watching that, and then he recommends myofunctional therapy even when they're younger, because then they might not need tubes in the ears. They might not need braces when they get older. If your tongue is up, your tongue acts like a natural palatable expander. So before the agricultural revolution, and we nursed until our kids were 3 to 5 years old, we didn't have crowded teeth. We were able to breathe. We had wider palates because all that changed. When you suck with a bottle, you're using your lips and your cheeks. But when you nurse, your tongue goes on the roof of your mouth. So they grow and develop differently. And so that changes how you look. So if a child or an infant is more retrognathic, they call it, versus looking, having this nice jawline, a lot of it is how they were fed as infants and where their tongue is creates that growth and development. So you can kind of watch how your baby is breathing when you feed them. Are they struggling? Are they squirming? Are they spitting back out? Do they have sensitivity? Because if their tongue's not functioning properly at that age, that's a problem. And I don't generally see infants. That would be an IBCLC lactation consultant and someone like that. But if it doesn't grow and they don't have that, then when they start chewing, then they have a hard time chewing, swallowing, and breathing. So they could be picky eaters. They could be noisy eaters. They could be messy eaters. The food is falling out because now their tongue is blocking their airway and it's protecting their airway. So they have an aversion to foods and they don't realize that it's that because they don't like how it feels when it's going down. So it's almost like a sensory issue. And again, your body's trying to keep you alive and it's like, yeah, don't eat that food because it feels like it's gagging them. So we have more softer foods now since the agricultural revolution, whereas we used to chew more. We used to chew 4 hours a day before
Wow.
all of this. So think of the energy it was expecting, how much your jaw was working. Now we're not doing that. And a lot of times we're smashing our food with our tongue in the roof of our mouth rather than chewing it. Or we chew on one side, so one cheek is more developed, one eye will be higher than the other if they're chewing more on one side and developing um,
Muscles.
those more than others. So we really should chew bilaterally and move it from side to side. So starting at 6 months, I recommend that moms get this little device called a Myomunchy, and you just put it in and you chew, and they put their lips around it. So this dinosaur doesn't have lips, but they just chew up and down. It's medical grade plastic. It has these like little hair-like things in there. It cleans their teeth, but it also gets them chewing bilaterally on both sides. So just 10 minutes a day chewing this gives you the 4 goals of myofunctional therapy, which is tongue in the roof of your mouth, lips together around this thing, and breathing through your nose, and then correct swallow. So if they have to take it out when they swallow, or it gags them when they put it in, they probably need some desensitization first. But it gets their mouth growing and developing how it should. And this is a great thing to swap out from a binky or pacifier, or if they're sucking their thumb or their fingers. And it actually gets them using their tongue the way they should. It also brushes their teeth. It gets them swallowing. It gets them chewing more, because our digestion starts in our mouth with our saliva. So it has those digestive enzymes in there. When we're not chewing as much, we're not creating more saliva and more digestive enzymes. And the more you chew, then the easier it is for your gut to digest and work on all those things. And that's why they recommend that you don't eat at least an hour before you go to bed, because you want your stomach to be done digesting before you go to sleep, because that's when you rest and repair. So if you're not getting good sleep, you're not also repairing your body. So that's how it's all connected, starting from how you breathe, how you eat, how you chew, what goes down. It's all connected.
And so for the audio listener, what you just showed was a little dinosaur with what looks like a mouth guard, really. And you put that in their mouth, and then they can chew on it. And I'm assuming you said starting from 6 months old. If they're teething, it probably feels quite nice to them as well, that they'll want to do it. And yeah, as you said, a great transition from a soother to that, helping ensure that their mouth development is what it should be for them to be a lifelong nose breather.
Yes.
Which is just so advantageous to our health. And as you said, because of the Industrial Revolution and our food has changed, that we aren't chewing as much as we used to be. And all of that is negatively impacting the proper development of our facial structure and movement.
Right. And that's called a Myomunchy. You can just look it up online. It's Myomuchee, and they come from Australia. This doctor developed it in 1966 to help brush the teeth, and they found that it actually helped expand the palate and maybe even prevent cavities. So if you have children and their teeth touch, you know they're going to have an airway problem and not enough room for their teeth when they get older, because we should have a space between every baby tooth. You should be able to fit a dime or a nickel between each baby tooth. So if their teeth are touching, if, they have dark circles under their eyes, they're having night terrors, they're walking on their tiptoes, these are all signs in your toddler that this is a problem. And you can start this early, because you want to use their growth and development. And our conventional orthodontics, when their teeth are crooked, tell them to wait till they're 7 or 8. They've had 80% of their growth and development by then. So that first 5 years is important. It's important to how you talk to your children, to helping them understand what's going on in their body. When they breathe correctly, that helps them control their anxiety. And even if you do breath exercises when you go to bed, that helps them with regulate their nervous system. So breathing exercises with your kids when they're little are going to be really important. And if they get uptight, like with my daughter, she would have a little temper tantrum and I'd just walk away. Well, I would have treated that differently now. I would have taught her breathing exercises and worked through that and let her understand why she's feeling the way she's feeling. But I was like that when I was little. She was like that. I just did what my mom did with me. I realize now
everybody's doing the best they can with the resources that they have, right? Which is why knowledge is power, because anybody listening to this episode or any of my episodes, you walk away with more knowledge. And whether it's knowledge you can use right now or knowledge you just tuck in the back of your head, that was a great podcast. I might need it sometime because I haven't had kids yet. However, I'd like to have kids. I'm going to file that one.
Yeah,
so that you can come back to it. And that way you have more resources than we had when
exactly.
we had little kids at home.
And that's why we do what we do, right?
That's
We
why
wish
we do
that
what we
we,
do.
yeah,
Exactly.
we
We've
wish we
learned
had
the
this
hard
information.
way.
So we're
However,
hopefully helping you not learn the hard way.
exactly. And in us learning the hard way, though, we also looked for the root cause. We didn't just accept the medication. We knew there was something else underneath it. We wanted to go deeper and actually resolve it, not mask it with a band aid. And that's why we share what we share, is to give you the shortcut to be able to get there yourself, for your own family. So, Sheree, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all of your wisdom. I know we could have a 3 hour podcast and still have more to talk about. However, I love to ask every guest that comes on the show, even returnees, what does "don't wait for your wake up call" mean to you?
Well, for me, it means listen to your instincts. I waited for the wake up call, right? I waited until I had those symptoms, and I did have warning signs, and I ignored them. So I waited until the symptoms were so much that I couldn't ignore them anymore. So that was my wake up call. And that's what "don't wait for the wake up call" means to me. Don't wait until you have those symptoms. Do something about it. Get tested early. Listen to your instincts. They're there for a reason. Don't
Yeah.
ignore them.
And your instincts will never lead you astray.
Never.
Never lead you astray. And so, if people would like to reach out to you, book a call, and have some coaching advice from you, etc., because you have so much info to share, what is the best way for them to reach out to you?
So if you just go to my digital business card, which is shereewertz.com, ShereeWertz.com, that'll take you to everything I do, and you can find something, some way to get a hold of me, book a free call. I have a free downloadable guide to 5 steps. It it breaks down the owner for you. You can download that. I have a small course that you can take that's 20, I don't know if it's 27 or 47, but it's a healthy habit experience. So again, it breaks down oxygen a little bit more in depth of what you can do and simple steps you can do at home. And then I have another small course that's kind of ongoing where I get on calls with you and help you work through things, basically going from before you get pregnant all the way from birth to beyond, with how to take care of your mouth and how it's all connected.
Beautiful. I love it. We'll make sure that we have all of that in the show notes for people to easily access. And as we wrap the show, is there any last piece of wisdom or advice that you would like to share that hasn't come up yet?
I don't think it's anything that hasn't come up, but if you asked me if there was something that I wish I knew when I was younger, it would be listen to yourself. We are taught to go by what others think of you. You know, it's like, don't do that because this person might not like it or whatever, but you should be you, do you, follow your instincts and listen to what makes you happy and lights you up, because the more that you follow that and you're happy, the happier you'll be, the healthier you'll be, and just a better whole life experience you'll have.
It's beautiful. Truer words have never been said. Thank you so much, Sheree, for coming on the show, sharing your wisdom. I always love having conversations with you. And to my audience, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for caring about your health and wanting to learn more. And this episode is one that you definitely want to bookmark and also share with others in your life that you know need to hear it. So thank you for being great, loyal listeners. And thank you again, Sheree, for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me again.
I'm excited to share with you a new program in 2025 that my training partner, Billy Admi, and I are launching. It is taking place in Q1 2025, and it will bring you to a master practitioner level of NLP, timeline therapy, hypnotherapy, and NLP results coaching. And what this means is, with this level of training, you will be able to guarantee your client results to them in writing. And no one else can do that as a coach. So it's very powerful. Throughout the 90 days, we won't be working together daily. However, we have trainings every week. You will be meeting your unconscious mind, designing your destiny, learning self-hypnosis and higher self-hypnosis. getting a 3-day designation in the Krasner style of hypnotherapist and start working with clients right away. Then we go into our 8-day practitioner level training of NLP, timeline therapy, hypnotherapy, and NLP results coaching. And we end with the master practitioner level of those 4 modalities as we continue to build your skills. Everything builds on itself all the way through the program. On the weeks that we don't have trainings, we have student check-ins, office hours where you can come, get your questions answered, and get the support that you need going through these programs. These designations are valid in 40 countries around the world, and all of this work is done on Zoom live with lots of experiential practice for you to be able to feel comfortable with the techniques when you complete the trainings. And lastly, because we teach it to you on Zoom, you can then go out and work with your clients on Zoom, which makes for a very low startup cost for you to literally be able to start working with clients immediately upon your successful completion of the training. For more information, check out the link in the show notes below.